Tonight on Meet Your Double Feature, mild-mannered Jefferson Reed uses his newfound superpowers to save his neighborhood from an evil gang. It's not a bird or a plane, it's the Meteor Man. Then, Lamont Cranston uses his psychic abilities to protect New York City from a descendant of Genghis Khan. A dark night rises in The Shadow. It's an obscure superhero double feature, and it starts right now.
Hello and welcome to Meet Your Double Feature, a double-blind movie review podcast. My name is Thomas, joined as always by my brother Frank. Frank, how's it going?
It's going good. I'm very, very excited to be here, as per usual.
As per usual. He has said that every time. The day he doesn't is the day we end the show.
Oh,
Bet you didn't know that.
Yep. I didn't know that either.
So you better keep that excitement up, or else people are going to be real disappointed in you.
Oh, gosh. Okay, no pressure.
No pressure. Anyway, welcome back to the show. This is the second episode of our new season on Meet Your Double Feature, looking at forgotten superhero movies. The way our show works, in case you've never tuned in before, is that Frank and I have each selected a movie for the other to watch and review on the show that we have never seen previously. Neither of us has seen even the two movies that we recommended to each other, so we're going to find out in real time what the other person thought of the movie that was picked for them, and then whoever gave the better blind recommendation will be declared the winner for that episode. So Frank, we're 2 episodes in. I have already forgotten who won last week's episode.
Let's just assume it was me. That's usually
I mean, mathematically, that would be a bad assumption, because I have won more episodes overall, but that could change, theoretically.
Theoretically, yeah.
Theoretically, if you started performing better, it could go a different way. Anyway, Frank, today I'm going to be kicking us off by talking about the movie you asked me to watch at the end of our last episode, 1993's Meteor Man. Can you refresh the folks at home why you asked me to watch Meteor Man?
Well, I thought it fit the theme of the season pretty well. I believe it's a superhero comedy film. And in it's the 90s, I believe, is that one was released? Because we can't seem to get away from 90s films.
We cannot escape the 90s. It's kind of quickly becoming our niche.
Yeah. But also because I've worked with the director before. I worked on a documentary film that he made while I was still in film school. And he seemed like a cool guy, and he seemed like an underappreciated filmmaker. So I was curious as to if this movie was any good.
Yeah, so that would be, in this case, for Meteor Man, it's writer, director, star, Robert Townsend. You worked on, I think you've told me, it was a documentary that he made in the 2010s about a previous narrative film that he had made, right? Called the 5 Heartbeats?
Yeah, the 5 Heartbeats is the original film, which is sort of a cult classic film in its own way, and then he was making a documentary titled The Making of the 5 Heartbeats, and that was what I worked on with him.
Oh, interesting. So I assume you were like the star, or like the...
Yeah, they were like, so you had nothing to do with the original film. Yeah. What can you tell us about what that was like? And I was like, I gotta go. I'm sorry. There's been a mistake.
I'm late for math school. And I'm like, that's not... You're in film school.
That's not a class. You're going the wrong way. That's not an exit.
Just walk through like a prop door and fall down. Yeah, well, that's interesting. I like that connection. I feel like we don't do enough to highlight the fact that you've actually worked on films yourself and have produced a film yourself. Like, the insight from that is fascinating to me. And so I think it's funny getting to watch something from someone that you have actually collaborated with, even in a small way, working as like a student assistant. So that's neat.
Yeah, it's cool. I mean, I haven't seen the film myself. I probably should at some point, but I'm sure you will tell me what a great pick it was for the show.
So, okay. Meteor Man is a movie full of caveats for me. First off, we're talking about forgotten movies. This one is borderline impossible to find nowadays. Like, it's not, as of recording, early 2026, it is not available on any streaming platform. I went to my local library and they didn't have a copy. I had to order a DVD from like a reseller to watch this movie.
Yeah, you're a big library guy. The library let you down this time, unfortunately.
The library did let me down. Usually they have obscure DVDs like that just because they enter circulation and never leave. But something about Meteor Man's distribution or what. Like, I don't know who has the rights to it, if it's one of those deals where like somebody owns it and they just don't care enough to do anything with it, but genuinely hard movie to find. I think if you were a listener, your best bet would be to get a physical copy or do that thing people do when movies aren't available on the internet.
And what was that? Tell us in explicit detail what that is.
Okay, so you gotta download a thing, and then you gotta go to a place, and then you get infected with malware.
I think, actually, to touch on that point, not the malware, you can have fun with that, but the...
Speaking of malware, I worked on that as well.
Yeah, I invented that. No, I think Meteor Man is owned by Marvel now. I think, I'm not sure the sequence of events that led to that, but I think technically that property is owned by Marvel, which would, I guess, be owned by Disney.
So it should be on Disney Plus.
Should be on Disney Plus. They may not know that they own it, or they.
You might have to alert Disney and be like, "Did you know that you own Meteor Man?" And they're like, "Who are you?"
Like, that's not a door. Again, you need to leave.
Sorry, I just math school. So that's interesting. Very difficult movie to find. Very in keeping with our theme about forgotten films, forgotten superhero movies specifically, which for us is basically anything that's predates the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Which I feel like what we've seen, even just looking at a few of these so far, people just made superhero movies and then kind of made fun of the fact that they existed at the same time. There was such a like inauthenticity to a lot of them, where it was like, isn't this all kind of dumb? And Meteor Man gets around that a bit by making the movie explicitly a comedy, and so it doesn't really feel as out of place as in like Steel, which we talked about last time, where they're like, hey, this is Steel, he's a superhero, superheroes are dumb.
Yeah, which was, again, always an odd approach to the whole thing. It's like, who are you making this for then? With maybe this one less so because it is a comedy, but like with some of those other ones that like seem to hate their own source material, like superheroes are for nerds, which of course now everyone's a nerd, I guess. That's just the cool thing to be. Like,
pretty much. I mean, nerds are really good consumers because they will stick with properties no matter how, the way people stick with a sports team that never wins, where it's like, sure, the last 15 Superman movies have been varying degrees of bad, but they got a new QB, this could be their year.
It's Supergirl. Supergirl's the new QB, and it was
Supergirl is the new QB. We're going to have to do a review of the new Supergirl movie, given that you're currently, I think, the biggest stan of the 80s Supergirl movie.
Big time. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that one, actually. That'll be interesting. That'll be maybe some good side content for us.
Yeah, I think we'll have to touch back on that one as a comparison between these older films and the state of superhero movies now. But Meteor Man is a weird one in the sense where, like, it's kind of a revolutionary movie. Not revolutionary. It's a very notable movie in the history of superhero media because it holds the honor of being essentially the first widely distributed studio-backed film about a black superhero, which is kind of mind-boggling that it took until, 1993 for one of those to get made. And even since then, there's been like half a dozen, and that's it.
Yeah, very few. Very few.
I mean, I think I was trying to look this up because there's like an asterisk next to it where technically there was a movie in the 70s called like Abar the Black Superman that had a guy with superpowers, but it was a much smaller production that not a lot of people have seen. But Meteor Man was like a theatrically released film that people saw that had a black superhero in it. And I do feel like even in watching the movie, that's kind of part of its whole premise that maybe wouldn't make as much sense now, where nowadays it's not uncommon to have like a black superhero, but in the 90s, that was almost like one of the jokes of the movie. It's like, can you imagine a superhero trying to fight actual crime, like inner city crime that real people are dealing with?
Oh, is that what Meteor Man does? Is that part of the story of the movie?
It is. The premise for Meteor Man is pretty simple. It's a very like straightforward movie in a way, although it does have some very odd comedic quirks that I'll get into. The main character, played by Robert Townsend, is named Jefferson Reed, and he is like a meek, cowardly teacher living in a suburb of Washington, D.C. And his characterization at the beginning is that his local neighborhood is overrun with gang activity, but he is too afraid to stand up to anybody. He even is like encouraging the students at the school he teaches at to like not stand up against bullies, don't pick fights, don't get in anybody's way. And then he accidentally ends up inheriting superpowers and has to deal with the natural consequence of like, now that you have the power to do something about this, are you going to be brave enough to do anything about it?
Okay. Well, that's a solid pitch for the narrative.
It's decent. It's pretty straightforward. The execution is less so. I think the weirdest things to me about Meteor Man are his powers, because they seem just thought up at random. I mean, he does have like a cape and an outfit, which is sort of a joke in the movies that his mom makes him a superhero outfit. But he has basically every superpower that Superman himself has, but also a number of very specific ones. Like the first thing that he learns once he gets struck by a falling comet and turns into Meteor Man is that if he touches a book, he can absorb all of the information from the book in an instant. But he only holds on to that knowledge for 30 seconds.
Whoa.
Right? Like,
that's a silly power.
It's so specific. It's like super strength, ability to fly, temporary book learning. What? Like, that feels like the beginning of a much more specific set of rules about how this superhero story works, where it's like, well, you can fight crime, but only in small bursts. But instead, it's like, no, he has like all the usual generic powers, but also this one really specific power that comes into play like twice in the whole movie and could easily have been cut out completely.
I think that was kind of a thing with old Superman comics, though, if I'm not mistaken, where like Superman would sometimes just have whatever powers the writers needed him to have for that particular story.
That's true.
So he would just have nonsense powers sometimes.
It is sort of a plot device thing. I think Meteor Man also at one point grows a community garden with his bare hands just because he has superpowers. He just puts his hands onto some soil and like a giant oversized garden springs up overnight. So occasionally he does like plot relevant stuff like that. But for his first introduction to be, oh, he can absorb book knowledge temporarily, it feels like you're learning about a superhero called like Bookman. And then it's like, nah, not really. He's mostly just Superman.
Yeah. That's the first thing he does before he even shows super strength or anything. He does the book thing.
Correct. His order of operations here is he essentially is running away from some local thugs, and he gets scared and hides in like a dumpster until they go away. And then when he comes out of the dumpster, there's this mysterious green meteor falling out of the sky, and he gets struck with a piece of it. And then when he wakes up in the hospital, he touches a book on accident, and that's how he figures out that he can absorb knowledge temporarily. And then the next thing he learns is still not super strength. It's that he can understand his dog and talk to his dog.
So, and is that funny? Did this make you laugh?
Okay. I'm trying to get the premise out of the way here so I can get into the beat of this, which is that nothing in Meteor Man is funny, and it's very rarely even trying to be funny, which I find very strange.
Interesting.
Like, you know how some comedies people describe as like a mile a minute with their jokes, where they're trying to mine humor out of every possible situation?
Yeah, like I was thinking of like the recent Naked Gun movie as a comparison point, where
Exactly.
It's like that's just all constant jokes.
Everything is strung together by laughs just to keep everything light. Meteor Man is like that scene in The Office where Michael Scott is like, "Oh, my brain's moving a mile an hour." It's like, yeah, that's pretty slow actually. Like that's how Meteor Man feels with its comedy, where something silly will happen or somebody will make a joke, and then we'll go for multiple scenes without anything particularly funny happening. Aside from a couple of like visual gags that are persistent throughout the movie, it just doesn't really read as like a comedy in a strong sense. A lot of it is actually kind of melodramatic, so it gets really lost for me tonally in terms of like, who is this movie for and why was it made?
Yeah. Well, so maybe it's like, maybe it was intended to just be more a traditional superhero film with some laughs in it, almost like what Marvel is now. Like Marvel skewed really heavily into the comedy side of things, where some of their movies almost feel like comedies first and then superhero movies. Whereas this was maybe trying to be a superhero movie with comedic elements.
It's hard to tell because I don't know a lot about the production itself, but it comes across to me in viewing the movie like something that was trying to be one thing and just was not fully realized. Because sometimes the jokes in the movie are really goofy. Like the villains throughout the story is like a local gang called the Golden Lords. And the gimmick with the Golden Lords is that they all have this like bleached blonde, like high top hair that looks really silly. And one of the jokes in the movie, because much like in Steel, part of the problem is that like the local kids and teens are getting roped into this gang violence. The Golden Lords consist of a bunch of adult men wearing suits with their blonde high tops, but then they also have like teenage Golden Lords and actual like baby Golden Lords. There's like 5-year-olds robbing people on the street dressed the same as the adult bad guys.
Wait, all as part of one group, or these are like 3 different groups?
They're all the same. Like they have a pipeline. Like that's one of the movie's jokes is like you join the gang as like a literal baby and then just age up into the different ranks. But that's so cartoonish. It's like Looney Tunes level stuff. But the movie talks about it in this kind of like sedate way where nothing is moving with like the speed or the, I don't know, the intensity of like a goofy comedy. Like he'll just be like, oh yeah, baby criminals. And then like, it's like, that's funny. We should talk about that. And it's like, no, I'm gonna talk about something else.
Yeah. Well, I mean, comedy is harder to do than drama. Like drama's easy comparatively because with comedy, something like that, like again, when you describe it, it's like, yeah, that's a funny idea. But then you have to execute it in a funny way in the film too. You have to show it to the audience in a funny way. You have to like punch it up, basically. You can't just like say something kind of humorous and then expect the audience to just go along with that.
That's sort of what I mean. Like nothing that they introduce as a funny quirk. A lot of it is reoccurring but doesn't have a satisfying payoff. Like part of the story is that Meteor Man is trying to stop the children, like the ones at the school he teaches at, from like joining these gangs. But there's like half a dozen scenes where just like the baby criminals are just there and they don't really do any additional jokes on top of it. They're just part of the scenery is that half of the bad guys are children. And there's no like easy layup jokes that they stack on top of that. Like somebody just had that one idea and then every subsequent scene, they're like, well, I guess we still need these baby criminals to be here, but for no particular reason. Like, how is that not a one-off joke where you like whip pan over to like the Golden Lord's daycare and it's just a bunch of baby criminals and then you whip back and you never mention it again? Like, that's a joke in a movie. Whereas this just feels like an odd thing tethered onto the story that never goes anywhere.
Right. It's less of a joke and more of just the lore of the film at that point. Like, yeah, no, there's babies. That's just how we do things around here.
There is like a small payoff for one of the kids that Meteor Man helps earlier in the movie does turn against the gangs. Like he refuses to give him up early in the movie when they're chasing him down. When he's in the dumpster, like the little kid finds him, but like doesn't say that he's in there. And then at the end, that kid helps him again. But like you could have had those 2 children be characters as opposed to just 50 baby criminals who just kind of hang out with the regular ones. It's just very like poorly thought out in terms of the editing and like how they interact with these things they've set up. Because the fact that you have something that absurd in the movie should suggest that everything is like a goofy Looney Tunes-esque bit, and there's just very few of those. A lot of it is like very sad and kind of serious and about how people are genuinely afraid to stand up to criminals in their neighborhoods because it risks real violence that harms their communities and their families. And it's like, oh, this is kind of too much of a bummer to also have baby criminals.
Yeah, it seems like maybe it was just an attempt to lighten the mood, but then it almost undercuts the messaging of the film in a way.
Yeah.
Do the kids have lines? Do any of the young kid characters in this group have like jokes, or they're just more of just a presence in the film?
They're just there. The only notable escalation of that joke is towards the end of the movie. There's a big fight happening in like there's just this main like neighborhood street set that they use a lot throughout the movie because it's where Meteor Man's apartment is. And they have a big fight outside of there. And at one point, while Meteor Man's beating everybody up, they try to send in this kid that they just call Kung Fu Master Larry, who's just like a 12-year-old who can do karate.
It's a funny name.
It is a funny name. We're like, and it's a good example of what we expect the movie to do throughout its runtime. Of like, okay, there's kids in the gang. Imagine if instead of being like, oh, now we're going to send in our heavy, we send in a child. And they're like, go get him, Kung Fu Master Larry. And then he just runs at Meteor Man and gets like blown away with his Superman ice breath and then runs off. And there's like some funny ADR where like you hear the other little kids being like, where are you going, Kung Fu Master Larry? Like,
I like that they say his full name.
that's what I mean. Like, that's a funny escalation of that joke of like, not only do we have kids in the gang, but it's not just a hierarchy of age. It's like, no, one of these kids is better than a lot of the rest of the criminals. But it just doesn't go anywhere. Like, theoretically, you should have had a kid on Meteor Man's side the whole time who could have had a smaller conflict with like a kid criminal. You know what I mean? Like a shrunken down version of the same conflict, but with two children. That could have worked as a way to tie that together better.
Oh, like if Meteor Man had like a sidekick, like a Robin with him.
Yeah. But anyway, we're spending a lot of time on that, but it's the most representative example I have where like the movie thinks it's being funny, but then just kind of forgets to be funny. I think the other example is that this movie has like a surprisingly stacked cast. It's like a lot of famous black actors from the 90s and a lot of famous musicians too. Like, just in terms of musical cameos, we have acting appearances from like Naughty by Nature and Cypress Hill and Biz Markie, actual popular musicians from around that time. And then in the actor side, we have like James Earl Jones is in the movie, but his character, right? This is 1 year before Lion King comes out. And we have Mufasa in this movie playing like a stupid, completely redundant side character whose only joke in the whole movie is that he wears wigs.
Oh, man. I have a very similar comparison in the movie that I watched, so we'll
really?
get to that later. Yeah, it's unfortunate, but yeah, not the wigs thing, but we'll get to it.
Not the wigs, but so James Earl Jones, you see him early on. He lives in the same building as Jefferson, as Meteor Man, and he's his neighbor, and the only two things you know about him is that he loves his jazz records, and he's putting on obviously fake toupees and insisting that they look good. And so throughout the movie, he's constantly wearing different like dumb-looking toupees. And then he has no real interactions with Meteor Man throughout like the entire middle of the story. He's just always around. He dresses kind of silly too. He's supposed to be like comic relief. And I guess the joke is mostly just that James Earl Jones is the one doing it. But then he even has like a dramatic turn where after Meteor Man has been fighting crime for a while, it ends up with a lot of retaliation against the community. And so these same people who were like pushing Jefferson to protect them turn their backs on him because they're like, actually, you're making things worse. And he has this whole scene where like James Earl Jones, even the comedy guy, is like petitioning to kick Jefferson out of their neighborhood in hopes that the gangs will leave them alone. And it's this kind of like sad bottom of the second act thing. So that in the end, he changes his mind. And there's a scene of him like taking the toupee off and like crying because he betrayed his friend. And I'm like, this is the most unearned thing in any movie. This is ridiculous.
Yeah. Okay, so we have some interesting tonal swings in this movie.
Massive.
Is there massive tonal swings in this movie. What's the overarching story though? Like, is there a main antagonist or goal that Meteor Man has throughout the film?
Great question. It's fairly straightforward. The Golden Lords are the main antagonists. They're just the local drug dealers and they're a gang. And so there's this escalating conflict between them and Meteor Man. And even though through most of the movie he's able to fight them off, he realizes that over time he's actually losing his superpowers. So after a while, the bad guys become aware of this too, and things have reached a point where they're like, Meteor Man's like, oh no, I can't even defend myself anymore. And so his moral arc at the end is like, even without these powers, I have to be ready to risk something in order to confront these evils in my community. So in the third act, he goes out to fight the bad guy with no powers at all, and his bravery in doing so inspires the rest of the community to come help him. So at the end, like the townspeople of that neighborhood like run out with pots and pans and try to fight the gangs alongside him because he encouraged them like, you can't just ignore these problems and then also besmirch. He has a weird reference where he talks about like their reaction to policing, which feels like a heavy thing to bring up about how like a lot of crime-ridden black communities have understandable issues with the police. But he kind of makes a comparison where it's like, you can't just badmouth them, but then also do nothing for yourself to like fix these problems. And I'm like, okay,
wow.
Again, this is kind of heavy stuff, for a movie with baby gangs.
Well, I was going to say, I actually like that, like on paper, the way that you described that conflict and the fact that he's losing his powers. It's kind of like the Green Ranger from Power Rangers.
Oh, nice. Power Rangers mentioned. Add it to the board.
Similar storyline there. But that's actually fun. That's actually something I would like to see from a like dramatic superhero film or just a traditional superhero film. And it sounds like with these massive tonal swings, as you put it, that it almost seems like they were trying to package a real message into this film, like with comedy though, to make it more palatable.
Definitely. It feels like an attempt to get everybody in the room in order to deliver a message that that Townsend himself probably felt strongly about, but it's so lost in its execution that by the end, like, both sides feel harmed by the other. Like, the movie lands as being spectacularly unfunny because it's not inviting you to make light of any of this stuff enough. Sometimes it does. It's like everything here looks really dumb, but then it's also like, no, you should care though. This is a real problem. And it's like, okay, if that's the case, then why is there a gag at the end of the movie where he touches a book called like Bruce Lee's Guide to Martial Arts and then starts doing the like, wah, like kung fu stuff?
Yes.
Why is that in there at the end of the movie that's about this like real problem?
It almost seems like if you were expected to take like one of those like parody films like Scary Movie, like if you were expected to take the narrative of that film seriously, like and be invested in that while they were still doing all the like really crass, like flat humor.
That's what I mean. Like, if you made the whole thing a straight up satire and leaned all of your comedy on that idea, that could be a serviceable comedy. I don't think it would be very memorable, but like you were talking about, the dramatic implications of the story are much more interesting than the comedic ones. So the whole time I was like, I'd rather you just ditch the comedy and make it sort of like a undertone of humor about how the whole situation is a bit silly. And instead, when the comedy does come into the movie, it's just like a freight train where it's like, okay, what is this now? Like, at one point, too, in that same scene at the end, the bad guy from the Golden Lords also touches a piece of the meteor. So they end up with the same powers, because it's a superhero movie. And then they both touch a book that says, like, fashion model walk-offs. Like, it turns into, like, the scene from Zoolander, where they're, like, strutting around as if it's a fashion runway. And it's like, this is dumb. Put this away. Like, this shouldn't make it into the edit.
Well, yeah, because I mean, contextually, that makes sense in Zoolander. They are models in that movie.
Yes.
Why would these two, just because they touched a book about fashion and modeling, start having a?
That's what I mean. That's the cartoon logic of it. Like, it's not, if you're not taking it seriously, then you can do whatever you want, and it's just funny. Like, if you want to make a comedy, Meteor Man should have, like, uppercutted one of those baby criminals to the moon. You know what I
mean? Yeah, he should have treated them equally as adversaries.
He should have, at some point in the movie, like, given up on helping the kids. He should have just been like, you're all worthless.
Oh, that would have been dark, actually.
But, like, in a comedic sense, where, like, he, like, maybe at some point in the middle, he's just like, forget it. You're committing crimes. I don't care. I don't know. It feels like two Lego sets crammed together that are not trying to make the same thing. And it results in, like, I don't care what strengths you have on either side of this coin. You didn't make a movie. You made, like, a weird story that has no impact at all.
Yeah. It's also kind of reminding me of, like, those SNL films where they would take like sketch characters and try and make that into like a feature-length film, and it just like almost never worked because it just seems like they just didn't have enough material to turn that into a narrative that audiences would care about, which is kind of the difficulty of just making comedies in general, but especially with that almost limitation of like, oh, we're using this character that's like kind of just like a one-note punchline, and then having to make that into a whole movie.
Yeah, pretty much. It feels like a script that maybe in its first iteration made more sense, but by the time the movie's over, you're like, why did they even follow through with this idea? It felt like they didn't have a whole movie. They didn't even have, like, fully formed ideas for who the supporting cast was going to be. It was just a one-off idea that for the time, again, the joke was kind of like, why don't we get a black superhero? And it's like, I can understand that being a worthwhile thing when there had never previously been one. It's like, this is important representation. And it actually does seem to hold some responsibility for, like, why don't we talk about real crime that superheroes theoretically would be trying to fix? But then it just gets totally lost. Like, I can't think of almost anything else to say about it because that's such an overarching problem with the movie.
That's a shame. I mean, I guess my questions would be then, like, how do you feel about, like, Robert Townsend is the lead? Like, is he giving a performance that leans either way? Is he giving, like, a dramatic performance at times? Is he funny, like, or at least humorous?
Great question. It is funny watching this coming off of Steel, because Steel was Shaquille O'Neal as an actor when he's not an actor by trade, and he did a terrible job, and the movie tried its best to hide it. Robert Townsend is an actor, and he's definitely believable as this character. Like, I feel like he played it the way he intended, and he's a perfectly competent performer. But again, it's like the choices at a top level are so bizarre, because one of the other problems the movie has, regardless of, like, the drama versus comedy balancing, is that everything about it is really slow and sedate, both in terms of the actual pacing of the movie and, like, the line reading in the movie. There's so many pieces of dialogue that are delivered in this kind of, like, slow, effortful pattern that it makes you really legitimately tired watching the movie. And I don't understand why any of that happened.
Wait, like, elaborate on that. Like, tired watching the movie because it's so dull in its delivery?
It's very droll in how they perform it. Like, there's a better example towards the end where, in addition to the Golden Lords, there's also just kind of these, like, vague, higher-up business people criminals. There's this, like, old white man who shows up towards the end and is trying to escalate things with Meteor Man. And he has one line of dialogue that on the page is, "You've really been giving me a lot of grief," because he's been having trouble with Meteor Man throughout the whole story, and this is their first time, like, really interacting. He's like, "You've been giving me a lot of grief, Meteor Man." But the actual line read from the actor is like, "You've been giving me a lot of grief." And it's, like, not delivered with emphasis. It's just spoken really slowly.
I mean, great line read by you, of course. Right.
Thank
there.
you.
Yeah, we appreciate that. The way you delivered it, it almost sounds like it could have been intended to be intimidating, you know? Like, he was like, "You've been giving me a lot of grief, Meteor Man." Like, very arch kind of.
But
like...
it's not. It's not arch. It's not camp. It's just slow. Like, it's an anomaly to me. I can't think of another movie that does dialogue this way. And even Townsend himself, I think because the character at the beginning is supposed to be a very mild-mannered and, like, nervous guy, he tried to hold on to that even after becoming Meteor Man. But he never gets out of that gear where he just speaks in this kind of, like, quiet, unenthusiastic tone, no matter how serious or exciting things are getting. And again, it's not played as a joke. Like, it would be kind of funny if they were like, "Oh, he has the powers of Superman, but he's really uncharismatic, so nobody likes him," or, like, something like that. And there's a couple side characters who are, like, giving it more pizzazz, but, like, the main guy in the movie just doesn't have any emphasis behind any of his acting. And I find it really strange because I'm sure he could if he wanted to.
Yeah. I'm gonna say I'm not gonna try and make too many assumptions, especially because I haven't seen the film. But
it's a good reason.
Everything, it's a good reason to not. But based on everything I'm hearing, it almost sounds like Robert Townsend himself was maybe wearing too many hats in this production. Like,
probably.
Because I believe he was writer, director, star, producer on the movie. And a lot of this is coming off as, I don't want to say amateur filmmaking, but maybe just, like, first time, you know, like, directing, first time producing, like, because a lot of this stuff just seems like I mentioned earlier, it's like with comedy scripts, it's talked about where it's like sometimes, like, a script is written and then, like, a team of comedy writers will come in to quote unquote punch up the script and, like, add more jokes or just make it more cohesive, like, comedically, I guess. And it seems like it needed that on the writing side. It seems like on the directing, if everyone was coming off as flat and tired, like, then it needed more, the actors needed more direction. And as you said too with James Earl Jones, it's like, is the joke just that it's James Earl Jones wearing a wig? Because like that's a first draft idea maybe, but you need more than just that. Like that's less than they would do like on an SNL bit to make that comparison
And
again.
you also need him to be in the movie and have like a purpose in the movie. There is a payoff where the way they signify that James Earl Jones has come around and realized that he should not continue to hide and hope that the gangs will leave him alone, he should help his friend, is that he's up in his apartment window and he throws one of his precious jazz records at the bad guy to distract him. Like they talk about earlier in the movie, he's like, I would never part with my Billie Holiday records, and then he throws one and breaks it to like distract the bad guy. So I'm like, okay, that's a button on his character. Where's he been the whole time? Like he doesn't have a purpose in the movie beyond that one idea at the beginning that pays off at the end. There is a more of a traditional sidekick character who's Townsend's friend that works with him at the school and is kind of like his support guy, but he doesn't do a lot either. Like the only real beat with him is that at one point he steals Meteor Man's suit and pretends to be Meteor Man to like pick up women at the mall. And then that kind of goes nowhere.
Yeah, and I'm sure we dedicate a whole pointless scene to that.
Yeah, we dedicate a whole scene where like the bad guys are going after who they still think is Meteor Man, even though it's his friend. And so the real Meteor Man's like, oh no, I have to save him without... He wants to do it in like a non-confrontational way, because a lot of his problem solving is very non-violent. So instead of fighting the bad guys before they can get to his friend, he like eye lasers the back of their guns so that they don't fire. And then he telekinesis his friend into the sky so it looks like it is the real Meteor Man. And then the scene just kind of ends because they didn't know what they were doing with it.
It just kind of ends.
That's the whole movie. Things just sort of happen back and forth. The Golden Lords show up, then they leave, then they show up again, then they leave. Like it has no rhythm. The movie is completely lacking in comedic rhythm or just storytelling rhythm, where a lot of it is fine. I would even say the movie looks kind of nice. Like the cinematography is basic, but it has sort of this warm orange lighting quality to it that I really liked. And even the costuming for the Golden Lords is pretty funny. But yeah, just a bunch of pieces that never came together.
Yeah. That's interesting. I like that you mentioned the warm lighting. I'm a big fan of like warm lighting and cinematography too, and kind of the emotion that evokes.
Because I think he was going for orange and green as like the color palette, because everything Meteor Man does is green, and then the orange was used for like a lot of the fill lights and the backgrounds, and there's a lot of like just late in the afternoon kind of shots on these sets that they're doing. So like the movie's not pointless. Like there's nice qualities to it, and clearly it left an impression in terms of like being a landmark movie for Black representation in a very popular genre. I will say before I forget, the Golden Lords actually show up in a Miles Morales Spider-Man comic at some point as like a one-off.
Oh, see, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, I think that's the Marvel partnership now. I think that somewhere along the way these became Marvel characters.
The rights to Meteor Man were purchased by Marvel, and I think Marvel even made like a short comic series about like the continuing adventures of Meteor Man. And then as like a Easter egg, some gang people show up in a Miles Morales story who are like have the signature Golden Lords look. So like there's an impact there. I'm sure it resonated with a lot of people who were like, well, we didn't have anything before this, and we like elements of what this movie is choosing to represent. But if anything, that just makes me more frustrated, because I'm like, you had a good chance here and clearly a lot of good ideas. But to your point, Frank, I think he wore too many hats on this one, and he just couldn't keep all those plates spinning at the same time.
Yeah, like I can see the strong pitch for this movie. Like I can see why actors like James Earl Jones would be a part of it. You know, like it's like you said, it's filling an important void in terms of representation. It just unfortunately wasn't the best executed film.
Yeah, I would say that I complimented Steel in our first episode for aiming low because it knew it didn't have a lot to work with, trying to make a movie starring Shaquille O'Neal where they couldn't even have him do a lot of stunts because he was training for the Olympics. There was like a lot of weird context behind that movie where the end result was like really competent. It was very A to B, but it hit all the correct beats and was just kind of a TV movie feel. Whereas Meteor Man was like aiming a bit higher and whiffed it. And so it ends up feeling like a much worse viewing experience, even though it was trying to be something a lot better than Steel ever was.
Well, yeah, that's I almost expected this from Meteor Man, to be honest. I thought it would be an interesting choice because I was curious to see if it kind of exceeded those expectations, but it sounds like it fell short. It wasn't the best.
It ran out of powers, script writing superpowers before the movie ended. I don't know.
Yeah, you ran out of powers just now.
Yeah, I did from watching Meteor Man.
But to circle back on that again, though, I do like that. That's something I would like to see revisited. I like the idea of a superhero gradually losing their superpowers over the course of a film. You could even do it with like an established character. We already know their powers, and then they're like slowly. Actually, what was it? I think it was Tiger and Bunny, the anime series that was about superhero characters. I think the lead character in that Tiger was kind of his story, was that he was getting older and losing his superpowers. And I thought that was kind of a fun thing.
That's an interesting one. I think the most common version you would see is like the I'm getting too old for this story, where like they have super strength, but it's not as strong, and like their stamina is worsening. This one was more like I had nothing, and then I was given everything, and now I'm watching it slowly slip away, which I think is an interesting framing, like you said, because in that moment, he's like, oh, I have so much responsibility now, I can fix everything. And there's even dialogue about like, once you're done saving our neighborhood, like you can go to the next neighborhood and you'll rid the whole planet of crime. And then in the end, he's like, no, I can't do all this myself. You know, no matter how powered up I am, like it's up to individual people to work together to address the problems ailing their communities, which is like a strong message that is immediately dwarfed by him doing a bad Bruce Lee gag in the middle of the climax of the story.
It's a strong message and a good take on superheroes in general, in terms of like superheroes in the real world context and them being more symbols than actual beings with unlimited power that could go stop all crime. Because I don't know if we've mentioned that in our last episode or whatever, but that's kind of a thing with superheroes, especially characters like Superman. It's like, yeah, why don't you go just stop all the wars, Superman? Like, what, you can do anything.
That's what the most recent James Gunn Superman tried to do. And then instead it was like a 15-minute talking to from another character where they're like, that was bad, Superman. You don't understand international politics. And I was like, why is this in here? This is so boring. Hey, did you guys ever think that if Superman was real, that might be kind of problematic? And it's like, yeah. Wow. Thrilling.
But to bring it back to Meteor Man, he tried to address that in a way, and it may have just not landed, but I like the idea behind it. I do appreciate
10
that.
10 out of 10, Meteor Man.
10 out of 10 for that concept, that idea, but, again, it's about the execution.
Yeah. 10 out of 10 for effort. Soon to be revealed out of 10 for how good the movie was. Soon to be.
Thinking pretty good, actually.
Pretty good. We'll see. So yeah, that's it for Meteor Man for now. We're gonna head into our intermission, and then Frank, coming in after the break, you'll talk about the movie I asked you to watch, 1992's The Shadow.
Maybe. I might do it.
He might do it. Maybe he just didn't see it.
Whatever.
All right, Frank, quick note while we're still in our intermission. We, for the first time, are actually going to make a guest appearance on a different podcast, if you can believe it.
I can't believe it.
Who would let us near their own productions? Yes, Frank, you and I, we recorded an episode with Tristan and Jeff from the Hard Ticket podcast, which also is a movie podcast that talks about 2 movies at a time. They have a different gimmick than us. Theirs is that you pick 2 movies with some connecting thread between them, and you sort of suppose that they're both playing at the movies at the same time, and you have to decide which one of them you'd rather go see. So we made an episode with them talking about 2 70s disaster movies, The Poseidon Adventure and The Towering Inferno, and had a great conversation with them. So if you like our show, please go check out our guest appearance on Hard Ticket. Their show's fantastic as well. If you like our content, you'll definitely like theirs. that comes out, if you're listening to this episode, the hard ticket appearance releases tomorrow, Friday, February 20th. So very excited about that.
Yeah, me too. Hope to see you over there.
Believe it or not, Frank's excited.
Weird, right?
Right. Okay, bye.
Bye.
All right, back from the other side of the intermission. Frank, now we turn things over to you to talk about the movie I asked you to watch, 1994's The Shadow, starring Alec Baldwin in what I think is sort of like a pulp comic era superhero movie, right? That's like a whole different type of superhero, but there's been a couple movies like it, and I'm curious if you like this one.
Yeah, he is definitely that in this movie. It's similar to... It's funny that this was my first comparison. The first time you see his character like in costume in the movie, I'm like, oh, this reminds me of something. I was like, you know what? He looks like Darkwing Duck. And
you know what? I could see that.
Like, if you do a side-by-side, I literally... Because I had to look it up. And I was like, what is Darkwing Duck based on? And the inspirations listed for Darkwing Duck are Batman, the Green Hornet, and the Shadow. Because the Shadow was, like... I think its most popular previous iteration was, like, a radio drama, but it was also, like, a comic strip.
Yeah.
And in terms of the costuming, though... Darkwing Duck is very literally the Shadow. They're wearing, like, the same thing.
That's awesome. Yeah, because I guess for someone who maybe can't picture this, because they haven't seen a lot of things like it, these were, like, 1930s, pulp action shows or radio serials, like you said, that often were sort of a combination of, like, a noir detective and a superhero. Green Hornet's probably the most recognizable one of those. Picture, like, a guy fighting crime in a trench coat, and that's kind of where we're at.
Yes. Well, it's also very Batman, too. I mean, I would say maybe Batman's a little more popular than Green Hornet.
Batman
just
is more popular, but is like more blended into regular superhero storytelling, but he is sort of like a bridge between a Superman and the Shadow.
Yes, you're very right. These guys are definitely way more on the noir detective side of things, which is a lot of fun, honestly. Like, yeah. It's a great space to play around in. But this movie... It's crazy. It's. Oh. I was very excited from like the very beginning. Like the first like 20 or so minutes of this movie, I'm like, well, this is 10 out of 10. We're just
nice.
I was like, if what you've told me is true, you have earned my trust for the rest of this movie.
Is that Ace Windu?
Yeah, thank you.
This guy out here dropping obscure Revenge of the Sith quotes.
I'm glad you got it, though. I'm glad you're paying attention.
Yeah. I'm on my toes.
Yeah. It's just like, I almost don't even know where to begin with this because there's so much to talk about that I enjoyed. Let's start at the beginning. That's usually a good place.
Usually.
It starts with an opening title crawl for the credits. Sorry, not a title crawl, but like just an opening credits sequence with some fun music. The score is by Jerry Goldsmith, who also did the score for Supergirl. So that's
okay.
That's 2 in a row.
2 in a row.
Yeah, and he more famously did the score for all the early Star Trek movies, and I think he even did the score for Next Generation. I think he was the one that composed
pretty hype.
The TNG theme. Yeah. So The Shadow right away has a fun score that's very reminiscent of, like, I would say like the Tim Burton Batman movies. I think if you want to get a sense, like, visually of what this film is most similar to, it would be those movies.
Okay,
it's kind of like
the early 90s, like Michael Keaton Batman stuff.
Yes, it's kind of like that, but leaning more into like you mentioned earlier, like the Green Hornet side of things, where it's not as bombastic in its visual stylistic choices. But I like that because it almost lands in a more tempered place between the two.
Which is good for live action. I mean, it kind of makes it an easier adaptation, I think.
Yeah, no, exactly. And you mentioned Alec Baldwin, who is is great in this movie. As somebody who's watched a lot of 30 Rock, it was really hard for me to not picture him like as Jack Donaghy as the Shadow.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Alec Baldwin's a funny one. He's like, I mean, modern Alec Baldwin is mired in public controversy, so people aren't a big fan of the person. But as an actor, he's so much the same guy in a lot of his movies that it does kind of feel like Alec Baldwin, the character, playing the Shadow, as opposed to like him inhabiting a new role.
Totally. And from what I read, the filmmakers had him in mind for the role from the very beginning, so it was almost written specifically for him, which
nice.
I think totally works for this. But we have to get into the rest of the cast a little bit here too, because it is also stacked. I mean, it's crazy. Like just during that opening credits sequence, like names were popping up of people I did not know were in the movie going in. But Ian McKellen is in this movie.
Oh.
Tim Curry, like those two characters share a lot of screen time. The main antagonist of the film, who is a direct descendant of Genghis Khan, but with superpowers, which is just amazing. This is where I was like, that's what this movie is. I'm so sold on everything you're telling me right now. Like, that's hilarious.
We all know the famously superpowered Genghis Khan.
Yeah, I was like, that's the bad guy? That's awesome. Like, tell me more.
I'm on his team.
Honestly, especially because he's played by John Lone, who is, for me, most famously known. He was Ricky Tan in Rush Hour 2.
Okay. That is more of a pull than an Ian McKellen, but honestly, yeah, Rush Hour 2 is great, so that makes sense.
Yes, exactly. There was a lot of like actors in this that just spoke to me specifically. Like, I'm like, oh, that guy's in this. This is great.
Yeah.
We had last season. I think. Oh gosh, what movie was he in? I think it was No Escape. We had Stuart Wilson, who played Walker, the bad guy from the live-action Ninja Turtles 3 movie.
Oh, yeah. Ninja Turtles mention. Put it on the other board.
Yeah. This movie has the other bad guy from Ninja Turtles 3.
No way.
Yeah. His name is Sab Shimono. And I had to look him up because he was one where I was like, I know I recognize this guy. And I was like, oh, okay. It's the bad guy from Ninja Turtles 3. But then I was looking at his other credits too. And he was also the voice of the uncle character on Jackie Chan Adventures, which I didn't know previously.
Oh, that's awesome. I love when it really shows how much time we spend watching and talking about movies that your examples for like this cast is stacked is the bad guy from Rush Hour 2 and the uncle from Jackie Chan Adventures.
Yeah. And I have one more too. Well, I have one more that's possibly even more obscure, but this is also the second movie in a row. We got two Jerry Goldsmith scores in a row, but we also have two Die Hard alum actors in a row. Oh,
no way.
Yes. This movie, it's a very bit role, as is usually the case for him. But the actor's name is Albert Leong, and he's the guy who eats the Crunch Bar in Die Hard.
Where he's just like waiting to shoot at the police, but he's hiding behind like the candy counter, and so he just starts eating chocolate.
Yes. That guy is in that rare class of actors where he's like a famous extra almost. He's like made a whole career out of I was looking him up, and like some people, like his nickname is, they refer to him as like Asian bad guy because that's just usually like the role that he's in.
Right. Is he like a stuntman too? Is that part of it?
He might be. I didn't do too much digging into that. I just know I've recognized him in a lot of roles. For me, most famously Die Hard. But he's been in a ton of action franchises. Like honestly, like pretty much all the big action franchises of the 90s he's been a part of, just in bit roles. And he may be a stunt performer as well.
That's the funny thing about looking back at a lot of films from a certain period of time, is that you do start to see like the actual Hollywood ecosystem of like people moving from one project to the next and kind of just combining and recombining. I'm actually pretty interested in Ian McKellen being in this. Like, so many of his most iconic roles came later in his career. I wonder what he was best known for at the time in 94.
That's an excellent point, because I was thinking too, I'm like, this is like not too long before he plays Magneto.
Oh, that's true.
Which is a big superhero movie.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, he's still playing Magneto. He's going to be Magneto in Endgame, I think.
He's going to play Magneto long after you and I are dead.
yeah, exactly. Long after he's dead, he's still going to be Magneto, actually. Yeah. But yeah, this was 94. I think the original X-Men was 99 or 2000. But I will say him and Tim Curry to an extent too are actually, I guess, the biggest disappointments, because similar to what you were saying with James Earl Jones, he's completely wasted in this movie. He has very little dialogue. The plotline involving him has him like gets like mind controlled, which is kind of a big thing in this movie, actually. And so he's just kind of like being a mind controlled puppet for the bad guy, for Ricky Tan, for like most of the movie.
Just gonna call him Ricky Tan.
yeah. Or Khan, whatever you want to call him, whatever works. I just that's such an earworm for me. Is Chris Tucker in Rush Hour 2? He's like, Ricky Tan, get up! I need you to come with me.
Oh yeah. Oh, okay. Really fast. Chris Tucker does an uncredited voice cameo in not Method Man. that's a reference. Meteor Man. There's a scene I mentioned at the mall where Meteor Man's friend is pretending to be him, and there's somebody speaking over a PA, and that's Chris Tucker.
No way. Oh, that's great. That's awesome. Chris Tucker does very few film roles in general. One of the only things he seems to always want to do is Rush Hour.
Yeah, that's true. Anyway, so this is our Chris Tucker adjacent double feature.
Yeah, exactly. But also similar to James Earl Jones' character in Meteor Man, there's this weird thing with Ian McKellen's character. It's like the only quirk his character gets is that, like, I honestly don't even know what they were going for here. They don't explicitly say he's colorblind, but he doesn't seem to know, like, he confuses red and green. Like, he just thinks things that are red are green and the opposite.
Thrilling.
Yeah. Well, it comes up, it like, at first, it's just like, okay, that's a weird detail to throw in. But then, in the climax of the film, he has to disarm a bomb and, like, cut the red wire or something. And he goes to cut the green wire, and another character has to be like, no, not that one. Like, so it's like, what? I don't understand.
Yeah, that doesn't seem like a loud enough bit. Like, what? It would be funny if it was like played to the point of absurdity, but otherwise, that's not a dramatic beat.
No. And this movie, like, tonally is in a good place. Like, it never takes itself too seriously. It's very much inhabiting a world of camp, I would say. So it's not like it's out of place necessarily. It's just odd, you know, and not elaborated on in a way that made sense. I was genuinely like, I don't get it. I really don't understand what the point of this is. Like, why he can't, is it just these two colors he can't tell apart? Is he colorblind? Like, they don't say enough.
That's the most common form, I think, is red-green colorblind. I would assume if that's going to be in there as even remotely, like, silly bit, you'd have to play it as, like, he's constantly driving through red lights thinking they're green lights, and the joke is, like, how would he not understand that by now, that's how it works, you know what I mean? Like, something more overtly silly, but it seems like they're like, no, this is just a struggle for Ian McKellen.
Yeah. So it's unfortunate because he is very much wasted. Like, when he's not under mind control, he's kind of just like this, like, doddering old fool. And I'm like, oh, this is such a bummer. Like, you don't need to, like, do Ian McKellen like that. And it's also, he's paired up with Tim Curry. Tim Curry is like his Ian McKellen's character is like a scientist. Like researcher, and his like research assistant is Tim Curry, but Tim Curry like willingly like sides with the bad guys because he's just like kind of a scummy character, and so they don't get nearly enough screen time together, and Ian McKellen just has just a weak character and he's barely there. So that was kind of a shame, because I went from being very excited that they were here at all and then on screen together, and I think I even read too that Tim Curry only agreed to do the movie because he got to work with Ian McKellen.
Oh, interesting. But why, though? Was it from his staged work? Like, what was his biggest movie in 90? I'm so curious about that.
I believe, I could be wrong about this, but I think the two of them had actually worked together on stage before. I think
That
Tim
makes
Curry and Ian
sense.
McKellen had
'Cause I
shared
know
the stage
that
before, yeah.
he was like a super accomplished theatrical actor. And I know he was in stuff even in like the mid to late 90s that was like very acclaimed. But I don't know. As someone who grew up in like the 90s into the 2000s, I'm just like, Gandalf. Like, that's just all I can
Yeah.
think of.
Yeah, totally. Because this is also, again, not too far removed from the first Lord of the Rings. This is just a little bit earlier than that, before his biggest like commercially successful roles.
Yeah.
So I don't know if audiences would have been like, at the time, been like, oh my gosh, Ian McKellen. You know, they might not have. He may have primarily been a stage actor at this point. I didn't do enough research into that.
Anyway, who's Alec Baldwin in it?
Alec Baldwin's basically Batman.
Okay.
Yeah, like everything about him. Just picture Batman, and that's it. Like he like
Picture Batman, change nothing. Ian McKellen. No, The Shadow.
The Shadow. Yeah. So to continue with things I don't actually understand about the movie, I really don't 100% understand like what the Shadow's like superpowers are. Like, so again, we'll start at the beginning, because that's a great place to start.
Yeah.
The movie starts in just a hilarious way where like Alec Baldwin is introduced on screen as this like mustache twirling like evil character, like living in some, I don't even know if they specify, but he's in like some Asian like Eastern country, and is like a like mob boss guy of some kind. He's like killing people, and then he's abducted by these monks who are like, we're gonna train you and teach you how to like control men's minds, is what they say to him. And the first action sequence of the film is him fighting a like dagger that flies around and has a name. It's got like a little like face on it.
What?
Yeah. It's but it was reminding me again of Power Rangers. It was reminding me of like the Saba sword that the White Ranger has. Yeah.
Put it on the board.
Put it on the board. It's 2 in 1 episode.
Yeah.
But I'm like, okay, this is kind of silly. But they're like, we're gonna teach you to be the Shadow. And then we flash forward, and actually, so after that, like, movie begins, we have these few scenes play out, and then when that scene ends, then we get like a text scroll saying like, you know, the monks trained him to be the Shadow, and then he went back to like New York City. I'm like, this is really odd to have this at this point.
Yeah.
In the movie.
What was the monks' stated reason for why they chose him? They're like, you seem like a really bad, irresponsible person. He's perfect.
I don't know. That's the thing. Like, they don't elaborate a lot. Or at all, really. They just, I think it had something to do with like, maybe he was like a descendant of someone that had this ability. Like, there was a specific reason they chose him. He wasn't just like a random person that they grabbed and decided that they were going to teach this. It had to be him for some specific reason, I believe. They did not say.
I'm just picturing these monks being like, now the Shadow has to be disciplined and efficient and well-trained and stoic. And they're like, who could do that? Certainly not a monk.
Right. Yeah, exactly. It's like, why don't you guys do this? I don't, like, they also don't really say why any of this is necessary. Like, they don't get into the lore, and I'm totally fine with that. I think I said that during the Supergirl review too. I'm like, I really don't actually care.
If there's a theme for this season, it's that we don't want lore. We don't need it.
You don't need it, because then the very next scene after the text scroll is like, scroll's not a thing. Well,
maybe they scrawled text on the scroll.
That's true. That's how they did it. Fun fact. But he's back in New York, and you get this very like Batman-esque scene where there's these, you know, these thugs, and they have this guy, like, literally they've put a block of cement on his feet, you know, and they're gonna like throw him in the river. They're gonna throw him off the Brooklyn Bridge, and the shadow does this thing where he does this like maniacal laugh from the shadows, and it's really funny because it's just like Alec Baldwin doing an evil laugh, and I'm like, that's a funny thing for your superhero character to do.
Yeah.
Like he's
It's just like, ha ha. Doing that.
Exactly. And so, and then, so this is like his first action sequence as the shadow, and like they can't see him, you know, because he's like a shadow. He's like beating them up. Yeah. So it's like, but you do see there's like this visual effect of like this like smoke man kind of like punching them and like throwing them around. And I'm like, oh, wait, so he has like actual shadow man powers? And then that scene ends where it's like the one like bad guy that he didn't knock unconscious like sees him in his full like the shadow costume, and it's the Darkwing Duck. But
Yep.
Then he also, for some reason, like when he is the shadow, it's Alec Baldwin in this like prosthetic makeup where he has this like goofy, like almost Freddy Krueger looking mask. It's like this like rubber mask looking thing, and I think the idea behind it is to make him look intimidating to these criminals. He's supposed to look like a monster man or something.
I'm not following any of this.
But no, that's the thing. It's confusing because like this is the first action sequence you see, and then the next scene you see with him is he's doing the Bruce Wayne side of this whole Batman shtick, where he's talking to like the police commissioner, you know, and they're like, oh, we got to catch this shadow guy. And then he does this like literal Jedi mind trick on the guy. He like leans back and like this shadow literally covers Alec Baldwin's face. And he starts just saying things like, you're not going to look for the shadow. He doesn't exist. And then like the police commissioner's like, I'm not going to look for him. He doesn't exist. So I'm like, wait. So he can Jedi mind trick people? So like, I'm like, is that his only ability? Like he can just trick like people into thinking they're seeing things?
It's the whole shadow presentation a mind trick? That's a good question.
Yes, which is what I thought up until like the midway point in the movie where he starts doing like other shadow things, and I'm like, okay, wait a minute, now I'm more confused because later there's an action sequence in the middle of the film where he's like fighting some more henchmen, and at one point like one of them he's like shining a light around the room trying to find, you know, Alec Baldwin as the shadow, and like he sees his shadow up against the wall, and one of the bad guys, because they're like Genghis Khan foot soldier guys, has like a crossbow, and he yeah, of course he does. He shoots the crossbow into the shadow that's up on the wall, and it like pins him there, almost like Peter Pan's shadow, you know, where it's like this kind of separate entity from him, and he's like stuck there, like he's stuck to the wall for a second because his shadow got shot to the wall. And I'm like, well, okay, now I'm just really confused as to how this...
That's very strange. That's like 3 different concepts for the shadow all in one movie.
Yes, and he also has 2 guns. So I'm like, okay, so he's also just like a regular guy. Like...
My name's the Shadow. I have a Peter Pan shadow and a gun. It's like, I feel like...
2 guns.
2 guns and a shadow. And it's like, well, Mr. Shadow, if you're in a dark room, are there really shadows? And then he's like, well, hold on.
Wait, hang on, wait a minute.
The monks didn't go over this.
Right, yeah, they didn't tell me. He's checking over the like script. He's like, well, how does this work? Because then there's one other instance too, where again, the whole time I'm trying to figure out how this works. Because like there's like a guy tailing him at one point, and he like steps into like a dark alley and then like disappears into the shadow, and then the guy like can't find him, and then he like walks away, and then Alec Baldwin steps out of the alley. And I'm like, wait, so was that a Jedi mind trick? Or...
Why would you need anything other than mind trick? If you can make someone believe whatever you say, why would you ever need any other tool?
Well, it's the same rules as Star Wars. It like only works on like weak-minded people is the explanation. So at one point, he's talking to Ricky Tan Genghis Khan, and...
That's actually my Xbox gamer tag.
Yeah, there's some numbers mixed in there though. It's not all letters.
Ricky Tan Genghis Khan 125 is online.
And one of his henchmen, you know, has a gun pointed at Alec Baldwin because he's being mind controlled by Genghis Khan. And then Alec Baldwin uses his Jedi mind trick power to make that henchman, like, give him the gun. So at one point they're, like, fighting over mind controlling this guy. And I'm like, this is hilarious. I love all of this. For the record.
It sounds goofy as heck. Like, I, as the one who has not seen the movie, like, it's the opposite of Meteor Man. I'm like, on paper, this sounds horrendous.
Yeah, no, but it's actually awesome. For most of it, I will say. Like, as I said at the beginning, like, from, like, the first, like, act of the movie, I'm like, everything, this is, like, they introduce this whole thing where he's the bad guy, then there's the monks, then he's doing the Batman thing, and this is all before, like, they reveal that the bad guy is this, like, reincarnated Genghis Khan who can also Jedi mind trick people.
This sounds like somebody drew Batman Begins from memory.
It is actually kind of similar to that. Yeah,
similar to, like, the Ra's al Ghul ninja stuff. Obviously, that movie came out way later, but strange premise. Like, that's not at all what I would have assumed. I would have assumed that he's a guy with two guns who sticks to the shadows because he's, like, a crime fighter. I didn't assume he'd have powers at all.
Right, exactly, because like, his contemporary characters, like, of, like, Batman and Green Hornet don't have powers. Like, but he very much does. That's his whole thing. But it's interesting, too, because he's also, like, vulnerable. He's not like an indestructible type character, you know? Like, at one point, Tim Curry almost kills him because for some reason, again, not explained, they walk into, like, he's, like, trailing Tim Curry, and Tim Curry walks into this, like, giant spherical, like, metal room that fills with water that's, like, on a pier. I don't know what the actual purpose of this thing is.
Wait, you never heard of a good old pier sphere?
It's a pier sphere for some reason. He follows him in there, and it starts like, Tim Curry is, like, scared. He's, like, running away from the shadow, but then he starts filling the room with water, and, like, he can see where the shadow's footsteps are because there's water in the room now. And then he's able to shoot him. So he shoots Alec Baldwin, like, in the shoulder because he's like, well, you're right there. I can see you.
Is that like, the line in the movie? He's like, I mean, you're right there. He's just...
You're right. It's pretty obvious. Yeah. And then he leaves and, like, traps Alec Baldwin in there. So it's like the room is filling with water. And, like, Alec Baldwin, like, none of his powers work here. He's just like, well, I'm dead. Like... But the way...
Which doesn't... I mean... If he can inhabit a wall as a shadow, can a shadow on a wall drown?
I don't know. I don't know the rules. Like,
what are the rules?
Which almost makes it more. Yeah, what are the rules? It almost makes it more exciting because I'm like, I don't know what's gonna happen next. Like, what can he do to get out of this situation?
Constantly adding context where he's just like, in the middle of the finale, they're like, your weakness, garlic. And he's like, no.
Dang it. I didn't mention that, but that is true.
That is in there. There's a lot of sub-items on this contract I signed.
Yeah. But so then again, like, the way he gets out of that situation is his love interest in the movie is this woman he meets who, again, completely unexplained, she has, like, some kind of telekinesis. She can read his thoughts. And so he has to get out of that situation by basically, like, calling her with his mind powers and be like, hey, I need you to help me or I'm going to die. And so then she just has to show up and, like, open the door and let him out.
This guy sounds like a nerd. I'll say it. Shadow sounds like, frankly, a loser.
He kind of is, but it almost makes him more endearing in that way, you know, because, like...
just a little guy trying to be a shadow.
He's just a little guy. He's just trying to hide in the shadows or something. Like,
but also is the shadow, but he's in it, but he's got a Freddy Krueger face?
Yes. And he's also, like... It's like he's trying to be Batman, but he's just not as good. So it's like all the things he has to do. He basically has to, like, blackmail a bunch of people into helping him do stuff, which again is kind of fun though, because it's like the guy he saves at the beginning, who like had the cement on his feet and they were going to throw him over the bridge. Who that's the bad guy from Ninja Turtles 3, by the way. That's Sab Shimono. And this is how they introduced this concept where he was like, okay, I saved your life, so you work for me now. and he gives him this ring, and he's like the Shadow is gonna come and need your help in the future, and you're gonna help him. And then so like you see other characters in the movie that will have this ring on, and that's how you know, like, oh, okay, these are the guys that are like helping him. And like that's the kind of stuff where it feels way more tonally like 60s Batman almost, where it's just like really corny camp superhero stuff.
Yeah.
But it's fun. And it's like, you know, again, it's like unlike Batman with his Batmobile, this guy just he gets around New York City because he has a cab driver who just is his guy who works for him.
He doesn't just like fly through the shadows of the night. Like,
no, he's not that good.
Listen, first thing you got to know about the Shadow. He stinks, okay?
He's not that good. He's okay. He's all right. But he's just not, he's not Batman though. Like, and that's what makes him kind of more fun, is that like, it's like, well, I mean, Tim Curry almost killed you, and that's just some dude with a gun.
Just a
like,
guy. So the beats of the story are nonsense. What about the like execution or the production design here is making this fun to watch? Is it just like the visuals, or does it have like a good just like pacing to it?
It does. It's really all of those things, actually. I mean, like, the pacing is strong for like the first half of the movie, and then it loses momentum, unfortunately, and then it like kind of peters out by the end, which is unfortunate, because if they'd been able to keep up the momentum of like the first 30 minutes of the movie, it would have just been an absolute like 11 out of 10 experience, because It was just like, yeah, it was just like every new thing they introduced, I was like, what? That's crazy. Tell me more.
This is so much of our conversation in these first 2 episodes of this season is just about like how to write superpowers. And I feel like nobody knows how. You have to like have, I don't know, resonance between the different things. Even somebody like Superman having like ice breath is kind of a non sequitur, but Shadow has possibly the weirdest moveset I've ever seen.
He does. Well, and I mean, like with last episode, like Supergirl had the huge advantage of people already knowing who Superman was. So you didn't need to explain her powers.
Yeah.
Like, she just did all the same things he did. And it's like, yeah, that's great. That works. Shadow, by the end of the movie, I'm like, I can't tell you exactly what the Shadow does. I just know he's all right. He can do some stuff.
The Shadow's not great, but he puts in his 40 hours a week. All right.
Yep.
And he tips his cab driver generously and then blackmails him into helping him.
Right. But to answer your other question, it has a very consistent visual style that, like I said, is somewhat reminiscent of like the Tim Burton Batman movies, but just like dialed down a bit, and makes some like stylistically interesting choices. They do a few of those like split diopter shots, which you might be familiar with, where it's like the two halves of the frame are both in sharp focus. It's kind of hard to explain it.
What would be like an example?
An example of that. It's something, well, it looks sort of like, from a production standpoint, it doesn't look that good. So I think it was like, it's not a very often used technique. It's something that I think like Sam Raimi would use a lot.
Okay.
But it's basically like, in this case, the way it's used is like one character will be in the foreground and then a character will be in the background, where normally like the focus would be shifting between those two characters, where it's like the character in the background would be in focus and the character in the foreground would be soft. But in this type of shot, they're both in sharp focus, and it almost looks like, visually, it's kind of like when scenes are shot and spliced together. Like if you're doing a scene where it's like the same actor in two different roles, and you can kind of see. Yeah.
Don't they do that in like Citizen Kane? Isn't there a lot of shots where like the whole range of the frame is like in focus?
Yes. I don't know if they do it in this same way, but that was definitely, yes, that is definitely something. They used split diopters in Citizen Kane as well, so that's a good.
Okay.
That's a good
now
pull.
Split diopters. That one is Shadow's abilities too.
He won't tell you. He would not.
He won't tell you
dare
because the
Shadow.
monks wouldn't tell him.
Yeah, and like his whole character too is like he's going for this like broody Batman thing, but like the source of it for him is that he like was like rehabilitated by these monks in a way, and he feels really bad about what he did as this like I don't know, this like murderous mob boss. Like
He's a loser. He tries really hard, but he feels really bad.
Yeah. And so with his love interest character, they have that special connection where she can read his thoughts and some other characters' thoughts as well. But that's also never explained why she has that ability. I think the idea is kind of like the monks will find people that have this unique ability and then train them to use it.
Wait. She was trained by monks?
No, she was not, but Ricky Tan was. Ricky Tan and
Okay.
who is Khan?
Ricky Tan, Genghis Khan.
Yes, they were both trained by the monks. Alec Baldwin went and became the Shadow in New York. I believe Ricky Tan says that he killed all the monks after they trained him, and he took that magic dagger with him. That was like the first thing that Alec that Alec Baldwin fought in the movie.
It's so hard to follow.
Yeah,
it's not your fault. It's the movie.
Well, I'm rambling a bit too because I'm excited though. I'm like, this was
I can feel
engaging.
the excitement. For someone who's now, honestly, this is maybe the first time you have been excited. I feel like now I'm questioning all the other times.
Yeah, no, let's not talk about it. But this, the Shadow, the Shadow is
honest, I never felt anything in life until I saw the Shadow.
Yeah. It's awoken something in me.
Awoken? What did you say?
Yeah, that's what I said.
Yeah.
Awoken.
Awoken something within me that only a monk could explain, but they're dead. Okay.
Oh man.
Okay, so Shadow is sort of a you had to be there is what I'm getting from the Shadow.
Yeah, it is. It is in a way. It's just, it's so hard to explain, like totally and stylistically, what an experience it was. The biggest downside I can say about it is that, like, just narratively, it really loses momentum in the second half, and there's just not much for the characters on either side to do, because what happens is, I almost called him Shao Kahn, but the Genghis Khan, Ricky Tan character, his goal is he wants to take over the world because Genghis Khan failed to do that, and he's going to succeed where he failed.
Okay.
And for some reason, part of his plan to do that is to make a bomb and blow up New York City. That's like step one. He makes, this is key piece of information I forgot. It's like a period piece. It's set in like the 20s. So like,
oh, okay, that helps. That helps me place it that it's everybody's old timey. It's not just the Shadow.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So like he makes like the first ever nuclear bomb, I think. The Shadow at one point, like when he reaches out to the guy that he saved at the beginning, because he's trying to figure out like what Ricky Tan is trying to do, and the guy that he saved is like this like physicist professor or something, and he's trying to explain this bomb that Ricky Tan's gonna make, and Alec Baldwin's like, you mean like some kind of atomic bomb? And he's like, yeah, that's a good name for it. We'll call it that. I was like, oh, okay.
That is a funny trope when people retroactively name things that you're filling in those gaps. It's like when you do like time paradox stories where like something only happens because the person who it already affected goes back in time and makes it happen.
Yeah, and it makes no sense. Yeah, so in this case, the Shadow invented the atomic bomb, or at least the name for it. He named it.
And then he's like, yeah, the atomic bomb. I bet they'll drop that during, I don't know, World War II. And they're like, what two?
Wait, excuse me? What are your powers, sir? Explain to me.
Well, the monks would explain, but they're unavailable because they're dead?
Yeah, won't be joining us for the rest of their life.
Yeah, exactly. Did Ricky Tan kill the same monks, or were there different monks?
Same ones. Same guys. Because he took the magic dagger. He took that with him.
He took the magic dagger. Okay. I feel like it's a funny inversion that the villain got his like powers after the hero.
Yes.
You know what I mean? A lot of times I'd say that happens in reverse, where like you establish that there's an evil force to incentivize the good guy character to develop powers of their own. Or something. I guess sometimes it happens simultaneously, but it's funny that he went through the same avenue as the Shadow, but just afterwards.
Yeah, and he specifically, like, he shows up to recruit the Shadow. He was like, I want to take over the world. I heard about what a bad dude you used to be. You should help me, because you also have these cool shadow powers I do. So we should nuke New York City, I guess, is step one.
And Ricky Tan's powers are the same?
Yes.
See?
Same powers.
We get a superhero movie. I will say, I think in Steel and in Supergirl, the villains did not have the same powers as the heroes. So that's nice.
No, I pointed out in Supergirl how fun I thought it was that, like, the antagonist in that film was like a witch. She just had, like, magic powers. So, yeah, very different.
This one today, Meteor Man and Shadow are falling into that very generic superhero formula where it has to be holding up a mirror and showing someone using the same power for bad to reinforce that the Shadow only uses it for good, ?
Yeah. And that's how that scene plays out. He's like, I don't think I want to be a bad guy. I'm kind of the Shadow now. I'm kind of doing the Shadow thing, so we're not going to do that. But then the movie has, like, nowhere to go from there. Because then it's just, like, he has this bomb. That's why he, like, brain controlled Ian McKellen to, like, help him finish making his bomb. And the Shadow's just trying to, like, find him. So he's doing, like, the kind of detective work to, like, find out where he is. And it turns out he's in this, like, giant building in the center of the city that he's, like, mind controlled the entire city to believe is not there, so they can't see it.
Nice.
Yeah, and so that's how he finds him in the end.
I feel like there's something with Ian McKellen being colorblind that should have played into, like, him being able to accidentally see through shadow illusions. That's the only avenue I can think of that would make sense. Is if we're already just using magic nonsense, we could be like, well, in order to create the illusion, he has to play with the refraction of light, but Ian McKellen sees light differently, and so he can see the outline of, just something like that.
Yeah. You're thinking, you're using that old noggin. That would work.
That would maybe work, and then there'd be like 6,000 YouTube thumbnails with red circles on them about how that's not proper science, and I'd be like, oh yeah, what about the rest of the movie?
Yeah, exactly. Like, is it a Peter Pan shadow? Is it not? What are the rules?
Why isn't it me and my shadow? Why isn't it that he has a shadow that is always following him on the wall, but they can, like, swap places or something,
You talking about Peter Pan or Alec Baldwin?
Alec Baldwin, the man. Why doesn't he have a magical shadow that he could swap places with?
Maybe he does, and we just don't know. He's mind controlling all of us.
He's in a giant building in the middle of New York City right now.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, that eventually it leads to the confrontation between the two of them, and there's, like, no way for them to, like, use their mind control powers against each other, really. So it just winds up being Alec Baldwin has to, like, fight the flying dagger again to, like, beat Ricky Tan, and he winds up beating him by, like, taking control of the dagger and, like, stabbing Ricky Tan with it. And then there's a sequence that follows that where, like, they run into this, like, Hall of Mirrors, like, illusion thing. And from what I read, it was supposed to be a longer sequence because they had built this, like, sound stage where they were going to do a lot of kind of, like, practical and visual effects for this kind of climactic battle sequence at the end between the two, where they were going to be, like, using, like, illusions on each other and stuff, I believe. But the 1994 Northridge earthquake destroyed that set. And so, yeah, they had to, I don't know if any of it was salvaged or they had to rebuild it, but they weren't able to film it the way that they originally wanted to. So it winds up just being this really short, awkward sequence where he, like, defeats him, and then, like, the epilogue for Ricky Tan's character is that he, like, gets put into, like, a mental ward, like, because, like, Alec Baldwin has somehow taken away his shadow powers, and so now, like, the people in this mental ward just think he's crazy, and because he's like telling him like, oh, I'm the descendant of Genghis Khan. And at this point, I'm also like, wait a minute, I don't even understand like what like who is this? Where did this character even come from? Because the way he shows up in the movie at the beginning is he's in like he was like trapped. He was like sealed away, and like these like archaeologists like found this tomb that they release him from. And so I'm like, wait, what? This character doesn't make any sense either. Like,
whoa, wait, he's the descendant of Genghis Khan, but himself had been entombed for like hundreds of years?
Yeah, exactly.
Was he,
something like that.
2 generations down from Genghis Khan? They were
right.
They were like, Grandpa Genghis, I don't want to sit in this tomb. And they're like, you'll understand when you're older.
Because it's the 1920s, so it's like, yeah, it's like, I mean, how long has it been, really?
Why would you need both? Why wouldn't it just be Genghis Khan?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was thinking by the end, too, because then there's this whole, like, that's the whole thing at the end is, like, they think he's this crazy person because he's saying all this stuff, but I'm like, wait, but, like, that is actually him?
Just 23 and me, this man. Like,
yeah, like, so that was very, very confusing.
So
and
weird.
Yeah, and unfortunately lackluster, like, second half and conclusion, and then there's not much after that. It's very much like, we get Alec Baldwin, like, kissing his love interest character and then, like, disappearing off into the shadows at the end of the movie, and then it's just credits from there. So by the end, I was like, oh, man, you were on to something. You had some really great elements in here throughout this movie. It just wasn't like it just wasn't able to keep that momentum going all the way through and be like interesting and exciting all the way throughout, unfortunately.
Yeah. I will say, I don't think you can get away anymore with the ending of a story being, and they got taken away to an insane asylum. I feel like that used to be more of a prominent, like, akin to just like send them away to jail, where the implication is like, where they'll be unfairly treated and tortured for the rest of their lives. And I feel like now it's like, wait a minute, shouldn't that not be what mental hospitals are for?
Well, that feels, again, like a carryover from like a Batman thing.
It feels like Arkham Asylum, exactly, where they all deserve it, but it's like, hold on, mental hospitals are a real place that are supposed to be helpful.
I think that's almost, like, Arkham Asylum in the Batman lore is almost like a character within itself. It's just very much a prominent location. And I think the idea is they're trying to rehabilitate those characters, but because it's just this serial comic storytelling, they just always get out of Arkham. It's just this cyclical kind of thing. It works in Batman. It definitely works in that setting. It works in
Batman, which is like kind of all about these exaggerated depictions of what are frankly a lot of mental illnesses. In the Shadow, I guess you'd have to see it. I have no mental image of this movie, even after talking about it for a while. I might have to go see it just to understand the appeal better. I think even maybe just watching a trailer would probably give us a stronger sense of what the angle is, because it's very confusing.
Yeah. And again, that is almost the appeal of it, is that it's so like flying by the seat of its pants type storytelling, which is fun and chaotic and interesting for like half its runtime, but then it peters out, and I was just like, by the end I was like, oh dang, like I wish you'd been able to keep that kind of like, because for like the first like 30 minutes or so, it's like every few minutes you're getting this new interesting angle on just everything that's happening, and it's like fun and exciting. And it doesn't completely fizzle out, but it just doesn't have that so much by the end, and kind of feels like it's going through like similar beats back and forth.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably the most common place for a script to fall apart, is like middle of the second act, because you can set up a lot of interesting threads that sort of write themselves as a story is beginning, because you just start with an idea. And then as soon as you like pass the halfway point and all of those disparate threads have to start converging on a conclusion, people just lose track of them, and then you end up with nothing.
Yeah, which is a shame. But there was still a lot to like about this movie. I was thoroughly entertained for a good portion of it.
Yeah, well, that's good.
Yeah, and I will say, this one almost, and in a way, did have a Super Nintendo game.
Well, hold on. What does that mean?
So, from what I read, there was big plans for this franchise. This was going to be like the first film in a series. There was going to be a bunch of like merchandise tie-ins. They made a game that was finished, but was never released because of the like horrendously bad box office returns on this movie. It just did very poorly financially. And so all of those bigger plans for The Shadow were scrapped. But apparently the game was done and like ready to ship, but they never released it. So it's
what? So somebody has a Shadow game somewhere?
Yeah, Shadow the Hedgehog 2005 is what it actually turned into.
Weird, right? How the script included Sonic the Hedgehog in the first place.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, that's sad. I thought I was gonna have to get footage for that review.
I know. Last like fun bit of trivia I'll bring in though was so the movie, as I mentioned, it had those opening credits, and then the ending credits. The first person that's credited was the first AD on the movie, and it's Louis Despacito, who I was like, that name looks really familiar, and I looked it up, and he was the first AD on this film and a bunch of films previous, but he's been the executive producer for essentially every MCU film. He's become a big part of like modern superhero filmmaking. So it was kind of fun to see him, like tied in with this. And he'd worked on some like in other roles like first AD, some earlier superhero films too. So he's been a big part of like the behind the scenes of this genre of movies for a while.
So what you're saying is the Shadow will return in Avengers Doomsday.
He was supposed to return. He was supposed to have his whole franchise played out, but it just didn't happen. Nobody liked it. So they're just like, no thanks.
Okay, Frank, great discussion about The Shadow and about Meteor Man. We move now into our final scoring and wrap-up. I guess I will start giving some final thoughts about Meteor Man. I would say that I like what the movie was going for, but it did too many things wrong and came together too poorly for me to give it a good score. I mean, I want to like Meteor Man because it's kind of a landmark film and had a strong message, but it was so muddled and genuinely dull to watch that, I don't know, I want to say 3 out of 10 for Meteor Man.
Ooh.
Pretty slow movie. I was forgiving towards Steel last time, and some people might think that's crazy and that movie's way worse or something, but I found that Steel knew what it was and stuck the landing. Unimpressive landing, but they stuck it, whereas Meteor Man just had no idea what it wanted to be. And I did see IMDb trivia like claimed that it's rumored the movie got rewritten a lot while it was in production. It just kind of is one of those, like, we lost it, Making a movie's hard. This one didn't really work.
Oh, that makes sense. If there was a ton of rewrites for that one.
I think there was. I don't know. I don't know if that ever got confirmed, but just didn't work out. So I'm going to, unfortunately, 3 out of 10 for Meteor Man.
Yeah, it didn't sound like you had a very good time watching it.
Yeah, and it was hard to find, which should not count against it, but does a little.
But it does, as it turns out.
Making me buy a DVD. I just own Meteor Man now.
Good for you.
All right. That was short and sweet, but that's kind of all I had left about Meteor Man. Over to you. What are your final thoughts on The Shadow?
Gosh, it's so hard to say. This is a really hard one for me to encapsulate because I was so excited about it, like a decent way into its runtime. And I lost that excitement over time watching the movie. So it's hard for me to place it because I almost want to score it based on my early impression of it, which leaves it in a weird place. So I
mean, you can't ignore a bad ending. I mean, that's quite a detriment if it like falls apart partway through.
I think I'm going to go with a 6 out of 10 for The Shadow.
6 out of 10.
And it could have been higher. There was just a lot, like, I really have to give credit to a movie like this, especially in such a tired genre at this point, that just does new and interesting things. And it was pulling from a lot of previously existing material and things I was very familiar with. But that almost makes it more impressive that so much of it felt unique because of the way it was like put together and packaged. So I do give it a lot of credit for that, and there was a lot that I appreciated about it. But yeah, I think 6 out of 10 feels right.
Well, that means that at the end of episode 2, Frank, I have once again won the episode. 2-0 to start our superhero season. How you feeling? 2 episodes in, are we starting to crack?
Not good, boss.
Not your boss. Does that sometimes.
Sorry. No, I got a good lineup. I think the next few I'm looking at here are pretty strong contenders. So I think somebody will like these, maybe.
Somebody, me, hopefully. Or the listeners, hopefully. I'm not the only audience for this.
Yeah.
Jeez. Okay, so now we have to pick our movies for next time. And I have to go first because I won this episode. And honestly, I wish I didn't have to, because I have some good ideas for forgotten superhero movies, but they're all 90s films. As we just talked about, that was the theme of season 1. So I'm wondering if I need to make more of an effort to avoid doing too many 90s movies in a row.
I don't think so. This is our show. We can do whatever we want.
This is our show. That's true. We ain't sold out yet because no one's given us the chance.
We will, though. Stay tuned.
We will. Whatever you want. Just pay us. Okay. In that case, I'll go with one that has been kind of at the top of my list because it is a superhero movie, but in a much less traditional sense. Frank, I would like you to watch for next time. 1995's Mechanical Violator Hokkaido.
Oh my goodness. What did you just call me?
Yeah, no, I know, right? It's a Japanese tokusatsu film. We put Power Rangers on the board multiple times today, and we have an affinity for that kind of storytelling. Japan has a lot of series in that style that are not Power Rangers, or its original version, Super Sentai. There's just other things, more like in the style of Kamen Rider or something like this. And to my knowledge, Mechanical Violator Hokkaido was an anti-hero character on a TV series who later got his own spin-off movie where he is the protagonist.
Oh, wait, he was an antagonist that got a spin-off movie?
He was either a bad guy or like an anti-hero in a larger, Power Rangers-esque show of some kind.
Okay. All right. Wait, give me the title one more time.
Okay. Mechanical Violator Hokkaido.
Okay. Got it.
I am likely mispronouncing that last part.
Nah.
I got it.
You
right.
got it.
Anyway, that's yours for next time. Very much not an American serial superhero movie, but I think the tokusatsu genre, pretty much the same, just a different take. They're still like transforming into beings with superpowers.
Yeah, oh yeah, totally. Well, and this is, this is actually not what I was going to pick for you, but I think you're kind of forcing my hand here into making this a tokusatsu double feature, because I think I have one for you too.
I mean, that episode title will write itself. That sounds fun.
Yes. I am requesting / demanding that you watch 1975's The Super Inframan.
The Super Inframan. Okay. That's a little bit easier to spell.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. So a tokusatsu double feature. This will be interesting because, again, we've been talking a lot about like comic book storytelling conventions, and these are not in that same camp at all. They have their own set of tropes and histories that are more closely aligned to like a magical girl anime than anything we've talked about so far.
Yeah, it's definitely, we've talked about the broader like umbrella term of tokusatsu, but this is even like a more specific category underneath that. So, but they are superheroes. They're very much superheroes in their own way.
We said at the beginning, we're not stretching that definition too much, but this is like a farther end of it that I think would be interesting to talk about because it is so different, but ultimately the same kind of story. So that's exciting. I guess 2 weeks from now, we will have a tokusatsu double feature where we will likely mispronounce many a Japanese word and name. And we're already sorry about it.
I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of Meet Your Double Feature. And Frank, thank you as always for joining me. First off, please, if you enjoyed tonight's episode of the show, like it, favorite it, share it. Anything you can do will help us out with expanding our reach and hopefully giving us the runway to make more episodes in the future. So appreciate that support. If you would like to follow us, Frank, do you think you remember the social handles this time off the top of your head?
Not even a little bit, boss.
Not even a little bit. Not your boss. Okay, so you can follow us on Instagram at Meet Your Double Feature. You can find us on Blue Sky at MYDFpod. And newly unveiled, Frank, we now have a Letterboxd account. Because that's where the kids are, I hear.
Cool.
So how do you do? We have a Letterboxd account. It is actually the same username on there as on Blue Sky, so you can search MYDF_pod. We will be posting, essentially, it's a way to keep track of everything we've talked about on the podcast. We'll post short written reviews and blurbs to summarize our findings. We'll have those same ratings that we give on each episode in there. Great way to follow our content, and we'll occasionally maybe even write about other movies that have not been covered on the show, if we have time.
Ooh, fun. I like it.
Neat. Frank, anything? Or just undermine your own advertising like that. Frank, do you have anything to plug? I guess we can hit him with the usual. Frank has a movie coming out on streaming, probably sometime this year, although those details are still pending, called Nate and Mariah in Venice, which he co-produced and was director of photography on. Frank, what's the website where people can find info about your movie?
It's going to be sardonicmp.com, and you can check back in. We'll mention it here as well. There will be some future updates in the near future. It's going to be first quarter of this year, in all likelihood, when it'll be landing on streaming. So we'll be happy to share that once it does.
Yes, that's why we're talking about it now. The details are still being finalized, but hopefully, even within this same season 2, we'll be able to formally direct you to a place where you can watch the movie that Frank's been working on for years. Very, very exciting. So please stay tuned to that as well. I guess that'll do it. Frank, anything else we need to plug, or are we good?
Nope, that's it.
That's it. Okay, see you later. We'll be back in 2 weeks with our next episode of Meet Your Double Feature.
Coming up next, it's Mechanical Violator Hokkaido, followed by Super Inframan on Meet Your Double Feature.